In the quaint seaside village of Oakhaven, nestled between rolling hills and the restless sea, stood a steadfast lighthouse known as the Whispering Lighthouse. It had stood guard over the treacherous coast for countless years, its beam a beacon of hope for sailors battling the stormy seas. For generations, the lighthouse had been manned by keepers who diligently tended to its massive lamp, ensuring its unwavering glow. But it was rumored to hold secrets as old as the sea itself. Amongst those who had answered the call to serve at the lighthouse was a young woman named Elara. Elara was a woman of few words, her quiet demeanor often mistaken for aloofness. However, those who truly knew her understood that her silence was not a reflection of her thoughts, but rather a canvas upon which her sharp wit and keen observations were painted. Having grown up amidst the salty air and crashing waves of Oakhaven, the sea was in her blood. It was no surprise that when the position of lighthouse keeper became vacant, she had been the first to step forward. Now standing before the imposing structure, Elara felt a surge of emotions. Excitement, anticipation, and a touch of apprehension all swirled within her. Her gaze, as steady and resolute as the lighthouse itself, was fixed on the task ahead. She ran a hand along the rough texture of the stone, feeling the strength and endurance embodied in its very core. In that moment, she was not just a woman taking up a job. She was a torchbearer carrying on a legacy as old as the lighthouse itself. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Elara's first day at the Whispering Lighthouse commenced. The duties were many, from tending to the massive lamp to meticulously cleaning the lenses. Each task was a testament to the lighthouse's importance, a silent guardian against the whims of the sea. Yet it was during these routine tasks that Elara's keen eyes caught an anomaly in the lighthouse's rhythm. There was a regular click, a metronome of sorts, echoing from the topmost reaches of the lighthouse. It was a sound so unexpected, so out of place amidst the rhythmic crashing of the waves, that it drew her attention like a moth to a flame. Curiosity piqued, Elara decided to investigate. The source of the sound led her to a section of the lighthouse that had long been abandoned, sealed off from the rest of the structure with heavy wooden doors. These were not just any doors, but portals to a part of the lighthouse's history that had been shrouded in secrecy and hushed whispers. The upper section of the lighthouse, complete with a lantern room, had been decommissioned decades ago, replaced by a newer, more efficient lighting system. But why, Elara wondered, was this part of the lighthouse kept off limits? What secrets did it hold that were best left undisturbed? These questions echoed in her mind as she cautiously approached the sealed doors. With a deep breath, Elara turned the old iron doorknob. The hinges groaned in protest, as if the very structure was reluctant to unveil its hidden secrets. As the doors swung open, revealing the dusty, cobweb-filled expanse beyond, a gust of wind swept through the opening, carrying with it the faint strains of a melancholic tune. It was the same melody she had heard earlier, now clearer, more resonant. The music seemed to emanate from the lantern room at the topmost level of the lighthouse. A shiver ran down Elara's spine. Was there someone else in the lighthouse? Her pulse quickened as she stepped inside, her gaze immediately drawn to the source of the haunting tune. The lantern room was a grand space, circular in shape and dominated by a massive lens that once focused the light of a whale oil lamp. But it was not the lamp that held Elara's attention. Instead, her eyes were fixed on an ornate music box resting on a table near the window. The melody, she realized, was coming from this very box. With a mix of apprehension and fascination, Elara approached the music box. Its ornate design hinted at a history as rich and complex as the melody it produced. The tunes seemed to weave tales of love and loss, joy and sorrow, all the while whispering secrets of the sea. The melody wasn't just music. It was a conversation between the lighthouse and the soul that resided within it. Days turned into weeks as Ilara delved deeper into the mystery of the music box and its haunting melody. She searched through old records, hoping to find a clue, a piece of the puzzle that would lead her to the composer of this timeless tune. The answer, when it came, was both unexpected and deeply moving. Through her research, Ilara discovered a name, Orion, a lighthouse keeper who had served at the Whispering Lighthouse generations ago. He was a man whose passion for the sea had been matched only by his love for music, but his story, like the melody he had composed, was incomplete. There were gaps, missing pieces that left more questions than answers. Determined to uncover the full story, Ilara ventured beyond the confines of the lighthouse, seeking out the wisdom of the elders in the nearby village of Oakhaven. The villagers, with their weather-beaten faces and sea-green eyes, were a trove of information. They spoke of Orion in hushed tones, their words painting a picture of a man who was not just a skilled musician, but a poet of the sea. His music, they said, was as legendary as the lighthouse itself, but like all legends, there were hints of tragedy, of a love lost to the very sea that had inspired Orion's greatest work. With renewed purpose, Ilara's quest took a turn towards the sea. The villagers spoke of a shipwreck, a vessel that had been lost in a storm as fierce as any that had ever battered the Oakhaven coast. Could this be the missing piece of the puzzle, the final chord in the symphony of Orion's life? Driven by this thought, Ilara and a seasoned sailor from the village set out to sea, braving the unforgiving waters in search of the lost ship. The journey was perilous, the waves crashing against the boat like angry fists. But Ilara's determination was steadfast. She knew that she was not just searching for a shipwreck, but for the heart and soul of a melody that had echoed through generations. As the old saying goes, where there's smoke, there's fire. And in the case of the Whispering Lighthouse, the smoke was the haunting melody, and the fire was the passion of its composer, Orion. When they finally located the wreck, it was nothing more than a shadow of its former self, half submerged and swallowed by the sea. But it was here, amidst the decaying wood and barnacles that clung to its hull, that Ilara found her answer. There, hidden beneath a loose floorboard, was a waterlogged journal. Its pages, brittle and faded, told the tale of Orion's life, his dreams, his loves, and his ultimate sacrifice. Through Orion's journal, Ilara learned of his undying love for the sea and how it had inspired him to compose his greatest piece, a symphony titled Lament of the Sea. This was the music box melody, a fragment of a larger whole. Orion's story was a tragic one. He had perished aboard his ship, the Sea's Lament, as it was aptly named, during a storm so violent it shook the very foundations of Oakhaven. Yet even in his passing, Orion's music had survived, echoing through time in the heart of the Whispering Lighthouse. As Ilara read the final entry in Orion's journal, tears welled up in her eyes. In it, he spoke of his fearsome approaching end, of the storm's relentless fury, and of his decision to play his unfinished symphony one last time as his ship battled the waves. With a newfound understanding of the lighthouse's past, Ilara returned to her post, the weight of Orion's legacy settling upon her shoulders. She had not just solved a mystery, she had become the custodian of a story that deserved to be told. Back in Oakhaven, Ilara shared Orion's story and the recovered fragments of his symphony with the villagers. Moved by the tale, the villagers rallied together, determined to honor the memory of their legendary fellow townsman. They reached out to musicians from the neighboring town, requesting that they perform the rest of the symphony based on the recovered fragments. On the day of the performance, the entire village gathered. The music swelled, carrying with it the echoes of the sea and the spirit of Orion himself. As the final notes rang out over the bay, there was a moment of silence, a tribute to a man whose love for the sea had inspired a masterpiece. And so, thanks to Elara's curiosity and determination, the legend of Orion and his haunting melody lived on. The music box continued to chime its melancholic tune, no longer a mystery, but a reminder of a love that had endured even death itself. And in the depths of its melody, one could almost hear the whisper of the sea, telling its eternal tale.